Welcome to Songbird Sessions, the podcast where Tom Burkett sits down with the voices of the DFW music scene. Dave Perez is the band leader for the Tejas Brothers, which is the original Tex-Mex honky-tonk band from Fort Worth, Texas. Founded in 2006, the band has been recognized as one of the best live acts in the Lone Star State, with fans often traveling hundreds of miles to catch a live performance. The group specializes in recording and performing original Americana, country, folk music, influenced by country, rock, blues, and Tex-Mex. Join us as Tom and Dave discuss how the Tejas Brothers got started and what makes their band unique. Welcome to Songbird Sessions.
Hi, everybody. This is Tom Burkett with the Songbird Live, and we're on another episode of Songbird Sessions. Today, we're talking with Dave Perez. He is the leader, singer, and accordion player for the Tejas Brothers.
Yep.
And they're going to be here June 27th.
That's right. Saturday, June 27th.
There you go. And anyway, so we're excited about them. This is actually our second time to have them, and they always draw a nice crowd. So we're really excited about you guys.
We always draw a fun crowd too,
Yes,
didn't you?
absolutely.
I think I remember you remarked about the people that came to that show were really fun and just having a good time. And
Exactly.
this is the perfect spot for that kind of a show.
Yeah. Well, Dave, tell us a little bit about what people can expect to see. Tell me about the Tejas Brothers show.
Okay. So I think, and I might be a little biased here, but I think that we're all about having a good time, and all of our shows are always all ages friendly, not family friendly. We don't curse on stage. We don't tell any bad off-color jokes. I feel like we have a good time. We know the audience is there to have a good time. It's not just about performing our instruments. It's not just about singing the songs. It's about connecting with the audience. And half the time that my mind is not thinking about the next song so much as the way how I want the show to go, but I'm looking at the audience and trying to read, like, we normally have a set list. So what you can expect, the audience can expect, is the very absolute best that we can do for them at that specific time, not something that we wrote down, say we're going to write this song, do this song, and do this song. It's going off the cuff. It's very organic. There's a lot of interaction between the crowd. A lot of times we'll have short little stories and people will comment about them from the audience, and we roll with that. We encourage interaction, and I can't explain it other than just saying it's like a living room set with your closest friends, even though we don't probably know everybody in the audience and they don't know each other, but it's going to be fun.
Well, tell us about the music.
The music, it's kind of like a mix between Tex-Mex, blues, country, rock and roll, Americana, folk. When I sit down to write a song, I really never know if it's going to be a country song or a rock song or a blues song. It just becomes what it is. And then by the time the guys get a hold of it, it just evolves into, it might be a cumbia. So we're going to play cumbias that are in English because I wrote them and my Spanish is not all that great. So you can expect good-hearted, light-hearted, cheerful Texas music. If Texas music was like a buffet at a restaurant, you could have the chicken fried steak and the enchiladas and the tamales and the coleslaw and the potato salad, just everything.
Sure. Yeah. Which I think that's one of the very cool things about you. You make your music just reflect your life.
And the people that I meet,
Sure.
Things that happen to me, my life, my family, my friends. And, we live here in Texas. You've been in Texas all your life?
All my life, except for when I was in
the Navy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, probably better than I do. Texas is, if America is a melting pot, then Texas is like the roux. That's where, it's really a mixture of all kinds of cultures, foods, and music.
Right.
And so if you live in Texas and you're observing, like I've been observing, I love all the different styles of music, not all of them, but a lot of different styles of music that come out of Texas.
Right.
And that's the way the show is. It's 100% authentic. What we play is what I've observed.
Well, so many musicians come at it from kind of I guess you would say, a more structured kind of point of view. In other words, I'm going to do a samba, or I'm going to do a specific style of music. Then they go about, or if they're even just doing a copy of something, they're saying, we're going to do this like a bossa nova, or we're going to do it as a soft rock or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas you're, I think, a little bit like somebody who's bilingual. You don't necessarily think I'm going to do it in English, I'm going to do it in Spanish. It just comes out.
And that's because I'm not formally trained. I did try to take some college classes for music, and I just I it doesn't make sense to me. The theory doesn't make sense. I mean, it does make sense to me, but the way I go about music is just, it's more observant, and I hear the notes on my accordion in my head, and then my fingers just go where the buttons are, and I just don't know the connection.
Which is actually pretty cool.
It's cool, but it's also, I think it's really neat. I've been to the Songbird Live to see other performers play that you've brought in, and I'm always just blown away how somebody has the talent to be able to never have heard a song before. They get the sheet music and then they play it like they've been playing it for years, and it's beautiful. And I'm just sitting there like, how do you do that? I wish I could learn how to do that. And to me, that's amazing. So,
music, you can come at it from a million different angles.
Yeah.
And I remember I used to think that, only the great musicians were the studio guys who could walk in and they could just knock it out. Never seen it before and they could still do it. And I used to think, well, if you can't do that, then you're not a great musician. And then I got into the Navy and ran into some of these musicians who were very ear trained. They may or may not be really good at all the theory stuff, but man, they hear everything. And oh man, just the way they come at it is just so different, but yet they still come out as great musicians.
Right.
Which I think is fascinating beyond belief.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of music written for the accordion, especially the push button accordion. So it's kind of like,
doesn't matter.
Yeah. Right. It's if you, it doesn't matter. It's not holding us back in the accordion community. That's for sure.
Well, I was in Prague here last week, and there was a guy who had like this little whistle, looked a lot like like a seashell kind of thing, but it had holes drilled in it. And this guy was just playing all kinds of tunes, Beatles tunes and stuff like this. And he's playing on a little whistle, which is basically a seashell.
Yeah.
And man, he's just knocking this stuff out like I'm just.
See, and he probably didn't go to school for that.
Heavens no. But realistically, I mean, like the history of jazz, these kids were finding, after the Civil War, they were finding these instruments out in the field. Because once the Civil War was, hey, the war's over, guys just dropped their instruments right there in the field, and then they said, I'm going home.
Yeah.
And so these kids, they suddenly had freedom that they never had. So they find, this trumpet or trombone or whatever, and then so they didn't know what to do, but they just kept messing with it until suddenly it sounded cool.
Yeah.
And then so I mean that is the history of the birth of jazz.
Wow.
And so if you're talking to a band director has no concept of how that works. They can only, because they have like a large, I mean, I used to have 112 beginners whenever I taught band. And boy, if you didn't have a structured way to do it, they would eat you up. And anyway, so you come at it from that angle and you think, well, it's the only way that you can learn music.
There's so many different ways. My mom, when she had a friend that visited Poland and came back with a harmonica and gave it to my mom, really nice harmonica, gave it to my mom for a souvenir. My mom didn't play harmonicas, so she just kept it. It was pretty. It was nickel plated and had ivory tusk and she just put it up on the top shelf in our house, and she said, don't you ever touch this. This is not a toy. Of course, what am I going to do?
Right.
I went up there and I grabbed it, and after about maybe 2 or 3 years of me jamming on it, she finally went in there to look and saw all these fingerprints and lip marks on it and said, who's been, well, of course it was me. But, I just remember blowing into that harmonica, hearing a noise, and then drawing out and hearing a different noise and moving it around and hearing so all of that just accumulates in your brain. Like, okay, if you blow here, it's going to sound like this. And then same thing with the accordion. I tell people when they said, how did you teach yourself how to play the accordion? I said, well, the accordion is a lot like marriage. Learning how to play the accordion, and it's a lot like learning how to be married. It's about learning which buttons not to push.
Boy, and that's the truth. We won't talk about that. But a fine piano is really just a hunk of wood to somebody who doesn't play.
Right.
But somebody who does play, it's magic.
Oh, yeah.
Just absolutely magic. And that same thing is true really with all the instruments. You can play really good trombone, but if you suddenly put a saxophone in your hand to a trombone player, you have no clue what to do.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it.
But who was it? Was it John Lennon that said, I'm a musician, hand me a tuba and I'll get something out of it?
Sure.
So, I just...
Well, but not initially.
Initially, no, not initially, but eventually, yes.
Yeah.
So, I have to tell you, I bought a used trumpet a while back, years ago, and I took one lesson on it, but I couldn't get the embouchure. Is that what it's called? The embouchure?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It hurt. It was painful.
Sure.
After about a minute. And I just never went back to my second lesson.
Right.
But then I pulled it out about 2 or 3 years ago, and I don't know. I've been watching some the Godfather movie, and I just felt like teaching myself how to play that.
Sure.
And I taught myself how to play
Sure.
the theme song to the Godfather.
Right.
And it was pretty cool. That I'm not going to get any gigs doing that.
Right. Yeah. People don't pay you for that.
Right.
Yeah. That's meaning. Now, Dave, tell me, how did you get started in, accordion and, quite frankly, professional music? How did that go?
What a crazy story. My wife, at the time we were dating, she wasn't my wife yet, but she was in downtown Dallas. I was going to go pick her up, and she was running late. And I said, well, you know what? No sweat. I'm not going to drive back to Grand Prairie, my hometown. I'll just try and get lost. And at the time, I was working for the Dallas County Sheriff's Department. So I said, that'd be a cool challenge. If you're working for the Sheriff's Department in Dallas, you shouldn't get lost at any part of your city, right? Well, I did. I got lost. And I remember pulling over, and I went into a music store to get directions, and the guy sold me an accordion. I had never played one before, and I went and I spent $2,800 on this accordion. And the reason is, he's a great salesman. He said, I said, man, that's pretty expensive. For something I don't know how to play. Right. He says, well, that's the secret to learning how to play. He says, if you spend that much money on this instrument, you will teach yourself how to play. You will learn. And I said, that's a good point. Yeah, it's true. I can't tell you how many times people have said, what, I bought an accordion, Dave, and they'll come over to the house and I give lessons all the time. Well, I used to. And now I live in Cleveland. There's not a whole lot of people that want to learn the accordion, I guess. Anyhow, they'd come over to the house and they'd open up their case and I'd see a $200 or $300 junk accordion.
Right, sure.
Just thinking to myself, you're not going to learn on that. But anyhow, back to the story. So I go inside, get the accordion. I go back out to the car. I still don't know where I'm going. So I had to go back in to get directions, right? But 6 weeks later, I had my first paying gig.
Wow.
6 weeks. I taught myself how to play the accordion in 6 weeks. But like I said, I was working at the Sheriff's Department at the time. So I would get off my shift at 10:30 in the morning, or 10:30 at night. I would go in. I'd get off at 6:30 in the morning from 7 o'clock for 8 hours straight every day. Everybody else was gone to work or school, and I was not bothered by anyone. So for 8 hours a day, I'd lock myself up in the room and teach myself how to play, listening to CDs,
sure,
listening to cassette tapes.
Right.
I'm trying to copy some of the great music that I grew up listening to.
That's actually the key, is just copying stuff.
What is it they said, that there are no more chord progressions. They've all been used and you're just copying at that point.
Yeah. Isn't that something? What was your biggest obstacle?
My biggest obstacle? Well, it depends on what we're talking about. My biggest obstacle to learning the accordion, nothing. It was butter. It was so easy to learn because I had that much dedication and because I had that much enthusiasm about learning. I remember showing it to my dad. I said, look at my new accordion. Open up the case. He says, ooh, that looks expensive. He said, how much was that? I told him $2,800. He said, take it back. Take it back. And then later on in the conversation, he says, I don't even have one reason why. I can't think of one reason why you would want to learn that thing. And I said, I got 2,800 reasons. But no, my biggest obstacle, I guess, for the Tejas Brothers, believe it or not, I would say the biggest obstacle for us has been the name Tejas Brothers. It still happens today. A lot of people will come to our show. Golly, I thought y'all were a Tejano band. My friends, I'd never seen y'all, and they told me to come out, and they've been bothering me for 10 years to come see y'all. Well, finally, we came out to see y'all, and I thought y'all were a Tejano band, and no, man, this is great. And so I think the name lends itself to more of a strictly authentic kind of Tejano music, and we're not. Like I said, my Spanish isn't even all that great, and so we do put in some Tejano songs because I grew up with it.
Yeah.
But most of our original songs, I mean, all of our original songs are English, but it has that flavor. It's got the blues flavor just as much as it has the Tex-Mex flavors.
Now, if I had to describe what you did, because y'all were here, and
Yeah.
and so I experienced that whole thing. What I would say is probably one of the roots that I would identify is the country roots.
Yeah.
And with country, of course, everybody has their opinion, but the thing that makes great country music is a story.
That's right.
And you guys are great about telling stories. You are personally great about telling stories.
Thank you, Tom.
And
I think that I remember you telling me that when we got done, you were like, Tejas Brothers, and said, who would have thought you did so much country and so much storytelling? It's
right.
you're right on the money. I mean, every country song that I've ever heard of is a story, and yeah, I guess I was in theater arts in high school. I was in drama, so we did a lot of plays, one-act plays, and prose and poetry, and when it comes down to it, you're performing on stage and you're telling a story. And same way with the music. Some of the stories that we tell are they're not. We're not trying to change the world. We're not trying to solve world hunger. They're lighthearted, a lot of them, but they're fun. And they're we've got this one song about La Llorona, which is an old classic kind of ghost story that I heard when I was a kid. Well, I turned that story into a song, turned it into an uppity beat, kind of a happy song, but it's from my childhood, just from somebody telling me a story. All I'm doing is taking that.
Well, what are love stories?
Yeah.
Love songs. They're all stories about what you went through.
Yeah.
And of course, it gets your attention. Whenever they break your heart.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those actual stories were just part of the catharsis of getting over these tough experiences.
Yeah.
And anyway, so a lot of the great jazz things that we know are just exactly the same thing. And in country, while it is simpler chord progressions, things like that, but once again, what makes it great? I mean, like when George Strait is doing these songs, about I thought I had you wrapped around my little finger.
Oh, yeah. And it's so visual too.
Exactly.
That's what's really cool. And as a songwriter, I'm noticing that the more adjectives you put into the song, the more visual, then you're giving them something to listen to, but then also you're giving them a picture they can create in their mind. So anybody who's ever interested in songwriting, there's a tip. The more adjectives, the more descriptive you could be about telling that story. It works not just when you're writing books, it works in songs too.
Now, how many songs have you written?
Gosh, Tom, I don't know. Maybe 200.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And out of all of those songs that I've written, I've probably only recorded and put out to public maybe 40.
Yeah. People sometimes ask me, how did you come up with, because I have 10 of the downtown buildings here in
Oh, yeah.
How did you do that? Well, it's the same thing as how did you get from here to there? You just start taking steps.
Yeah.
When it's all said and done, how'd you get 200 songs? And I just kept writing one at a time.
That's it. That's exactly right. And a lot of times I think if you just keep trying, it's like anything else. Practice makes perfect. Not that by any means am I perfect, but I'm better a songwriter now than I was yesterday.
Sure.
And it's because you just accumulate these different tips and the different things that you stumble upon, and then every day you have more inspiration to draw from. You have more experience, right? So. Well, I hope that everybody comes out to the Songbird Live here in Cleveland, Texas on June 27th, Saturday, June 27th, so that we can tell y'all our story.
When did you said that you got your first gig almost out of the box as soon as you learned a couple of things?
My dad was sitting there reading the newspaper, listening to me and my buddy practice some songs. And this was exactly 6 weeks after I bought my first accordion. My dad looks up from his paper and he says, all right, you guys are ready to go make some money. So the first restaurant we went to, we asked if we could play. He let us play, and we stayed there for about 11 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Los Lupes is the name of the restaurant. Los Lupes in Grand Prairie, Texas.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So how did you make the jump then to, because this you've been supporting your family
Yeah, well, and
for a long time.
yeah, that's right. Since 1998, I started playing the accordion. 6 weeks later, had my first gig. That was in May. So June, July was my first gig. Well, Los Lupes had a big part of this started. So when we first started playing, we played, I believe we were only playing on Saturday nights. And then the Los Lupes manager, the owner, says, "I'd like to have you boys come in on Friday as well, maybe Sunday morning." Okay, so we started doing that. And then it was a family-owned restaurant. One of the other brothers said, "Hey, I'd like to get them out of here on Wednesdays and Thursdays in Duncanville." Before you knew it, we were playing 8 shows a week.
Wow.
8 shows, 2 gigs on Sunday, 8 shows a week. And it was either at the Carrollton location, Irving location, all around Dallas-Fort Worth. And so, we were making really good money with the tips as well. Then finally one day I decided, hey, time to quit my old day job so I can spend the daytime hours promoting the shows and getting my name out there and writing songs and learning. My life was all about music. And we had a policy at the restaurant. At that time, I wasn't really writing yet. At that time, we had a policy. If you came into to Los Lupes when we were playing and we didn't know one of your songs that you requested, we said, come back next week and we'll have it for you.
There you go.
So we needed that week to learn 10 new songs. By the time we counted about 1,700 songs that we had in our repertoire.
Really?
Yeah. Big, thick notebooks that we'd bring up there. But most of the time, by the end of it, we had almost all of them memorized. But it was everything from Pantera to Steve Miller Band to Santana to Ramon Ayala and Ray Charles, everything.
You make that sound so simple. I started learning how to play, and 6 weeks later we had our first gig and stuff. That sounds so simple. Guys, go home, get whatever instrument you want, and you can learn it in 6 weeks. And next thing you know, you're a professional player.
Well, I think to be fair though, I bet you anything, our first show, or probably the first year that we were playing, I think a lot of that applause was probably pity applause. Poor guys. A lot of the tips were probably like, these poor guys, they need some help. But you get better. It's just like anything else.
Sure.
Practice makes.
Yeah, if you stick with it, it's like anything. If you stick with it, you get better. Well, now you're discounting a couple of things. Number one, there's an innate musical talent that you have. I mean, the ability to hear songs and copy them. Because not everybody can do that.
That's fair. I remember being a very, very little kid, got a little Casio keyboard for Christmas, and I heard a song, and I just started emulating, and it wasn't perfect, but I mean, for a 7-year-old kid who's never played the piano, I was like able to find, these keys go lower, these keys go higher, and your melody's somewhere in between.
And, some kids, they can go to the piano and they take their fist and they go, and then everything sounds the same.
Yeah. That was my dad on the guitar. He had one string and he just played it.
Once again, these guys are really a heck of entertainers. And that's something I was going to say. Yeah, they have this musical talent, but Dave also has this incredible memory. He has this ability to tell stories, and then he morphs that into music, and whenever he's singing his songs, he's telling stories.
Yeah.
And not everybody tells good stories. Dave does.
Thanks.
And so anyway, we very much encourage you to come out, even if you've never heard Tejas Brothers. If you think, well, this might be a Tejano band, that's the tip of the iceberg. Promise you. So come out and see them on the 27th of June, and we promise you a good time.
I can guarantee it. I would say if you don't have a good time, I will come and wash your car for you. I'm trying to think of something cool.
Dave, I can already tell you now, I won't have a good time. Would you start it on my car?
That's right. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not Tom. Tom's not included in the deal.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking with us, for listening to us. This is another episode of our Songbird Sessions. We hope to see you. Promise you once again a good time.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dave Perez, for being a part of us.
Tom, thank you, man.
Okay. And we'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching. For more info on our current show schedule, please visit songbirdlive.com. And for current updates, please check the Songbird Live Facebook page. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.